Hey, ever feel stuck and wonder why some people achieve greatness while others remain average? Join me, Mark Jean, and Beyond Average to Great as we uncover the secrets to breaking free from mediocrity and unlock the greatness within you. Through inspiring stories and insights from people who have changed their lives, you'll learn how strong decisions and bold actions can take you to the next level. Let's go. Hey, welcome to another episode of Beyond Average to Great, and today's show is all around money and finance and New Year's goals. And is making more money the number one New Year's goal? Well, the short answer is yes. It's often phrased as get out of debt, save more, earn more, or improve my lifestyle. So those are things that we want to talk about, and one of the things that it really is at that core desire is more. So more is an acronym that my friend Richard Dolan, who's also coaches me, more stands for more money. The O is omnipresence, getting out of obscurity, getting known, because you have to be known and get out there if you want to make more money. Results, E stands for excellence. We want to have excellence in what we do. Grant Cardone says, be great because nothing else pays, which I've experienced that. The more I lean into being great, the more my income has increased just because I can serve my clients better. So our theme today is about earning more money, what we should do with our finances. And our guest is Elsha Kim. She is a licensed financial professional, as well as an entrepreneur who has taken a business from zero to over 6 figures in 1 year. And so that's very impressive. And Elsha, welcome to the show.
Why, thank you, Mark. It's so great to be here.
Yes. Well, tell us a little bit more about you before we get started.
Yeah, so you mentioned I actually just recently got into the financial industry and market this year. And you mentioned being an entrepreneur. I'm also an actor. And Yeah, Mark, God has really blessed my business in that what you mentioned the first year, it went into 6 figures, which is something I could have never, ever imagined. Okay. Disclaimer, the first 6 months, it was at 200 US dollars. And then the year after, the Lord just blew past my expectations. But with that, I was really operating on just kind of my own knowledge and what I was learning on the internet. And then also, even in acting, as an actor, when you work, which is few and far in between, they call it a feast and famine business, you get large lump sums of money at once,
Hmm.
and then knowing what to do with that. And then I've been thinking back on this past year, but a lot of actors you see are successful, make a lot of money, they end up going bankrupt, right?
Hmm.
Like that's not something that we haven't heard of often. And so this year, actually, I was introduced to some free financial workshops. And that's when I was really like, oh my gosh, how are we not learning this in school?
Yeah.
I've heard the saying, you got to learn how money works, right? Make your money work for you. And I thought I'd be like, okay, yeah, so cheesy.
Hmm.
But going to these workshops, I learned that there really is a science and a formula behind it. It's not rocket science, as a lot of people would have you believe. And
Hmm.
the other really big thing is that I think we briefly chatted about this, that because we're not learning it in school, the things that we're actually learning about money is from home,
Hmm.
and as much as my parents are incredible and, our parents often want to do the best for us, they may have not learned it from their families, so a lot of what we're
Yeah.
learning is home. Um, so yeah, it's something that I was recently introduced to this year. I'm still learning a lot right now, but I know you and I connected because one of your sons is studying finance. And when he shared what he was learning at school, which I've heard from my friends who went to got their masters in different business schools, you don't actually learn much in school.
No. I mean, as he said, they teach you how to earn a good grade, but not how to earn income.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think that's a problem too that we face because, speaking about goal setting,
Hmm.
especially around money and finance, people look at budgeting and how they can cut their expenses and not focus on income, which is so powerful because it can, cover all those expenses if you focus on increasing your income. And I had a friend jokingly say, "Hey, I figured out how to get out of debt." And
Hmm.
it's like, "What? How?" And he goes, "Overwhelm it with income," which is
Oh, I
so
like that.
true. It's like the only way to get out of debt is to overwhelm it with income. And
Yeah.
so that's where I think we need to shift in what we're doing is have our attention on income. We want to pay attention to our expenses, but
Hmm.
our 90% of our time should be focused on income and what we can
Mm.
do to earn more, save more, invest more, and multiply our money.
Amen.
So, um, what do you think, so what for you as, getting into finance and helping others, what are some of the goals that you've come across that people have with money?
Well, I think you mentioned it. A lot of people, one of the big things is getting out of debt,
Hmm.
making more money. And I have to agree with you. Cash flow is so important. That's the oxygen. If you have a business, that's what's going to keep your business going.
Yeah.
Knowing your numbers. I meet a lot of people who are business owners and they have absolutely no idea how much it's actually costing to run their business, how many units that they need to sell to get out of the red, to make up for their investments. So knowing your numbers, but I think it's important to earn more. We need to, like you said, and at the same time, understanding the systems. Because right now, the way that our economy is going, I know a lot of people in my generation, they feel pretty at ends because they have a full-time job somewhere, a good paying job, and yet they can't afford a home. They're
Hmm.
still barely just eking by, maybe considering a second or third job. And if we look at the statistics from the 70s, if you don't account for inflation, house prices has risen by almost like twenty times.
Yeah.
Whereas wages, yeah, wages have only gone up like 7 or 8 times. So if you
Wow.
look at that, yeah, you realize you have to earn more. But
Hmm.
even if you earn in the traditional way, if you have a full-time job, you're doing all the right things, that still may not be enough to keep up with what's happening right now.
Hmm.
So it's understanding, okay, this is how the system's working. Oh, all right, let me look at my savings account. I met someone recently who's still saving in their bank account. And something we talk a lot about is the rule of 72. I'm sure you've heard of it. 72
Yeah.
divided by your interest rate equals the amount of time it takes for your money to double. Well, a lot of people are not aware of even the interest rate they're getting at the bank, which is, I just read this in Grant's book over the weekend, but he talked about it also. It is on average 0.01%. Not zero point 0.1, but 0.01. So if you leave your money in the bank, it will take, with that interest rate, over 7,000 years for your money to double. But people are not aware of this.
Yeah. And the fact that inflation outpaces that earning. And so
Yeah.
how do you account for that? What do you do to kind of go, okay, just, what used to be saving
Hmm.
your money would help you towards retirement is no longer the valid pathway to take.
Hmm.
So how do you shift from that to where, okay, I don't need to just save my money. How do I multiply my money so my money's working for me? And how do I keep it from being affected by inflation? How do I protect it from
Yeah.
inflation?
Yeah. I think first things first, you need to know your numbers.
Yeah,
So someone needs to know the average rate of inflation so that they can know the minimum rate of return that they need to have on an investment. So
yeah.
annually, they say it's about 3%. In 2022, it was in California at least 7%. I've heard a few other people, I haven't fact checked it, but saying that inflation on average is 7 to 8%,
Hmm.
which means that your rate of return on any investment needs to be at least that.
Yeah,
So, yeah, a lot of different whole life insurance products sometimes their minimum or their guaranteed rate of return is 3%, so you're just outpacing inflation, maybe if it's at 3. So
yeah.
I think first things first, know your numbers, but also knowing where we're at. I think we can agree we need multiple streams of income.
Yeah. Understanding as far as what you're investing in, and I
Hmm.
think investing in assets that cash flow
Hmm.
is one way, because if you're investing in assets that kind of appreciate, like real estate, for example, if you're
Yeah.
investing in a real estate property, because the value of that property is going to increase as rents increase, because you know that rents that were 5 years ago aren't the same as what they are today. So if you're investing in
Yeah.
something like that, you're getting that is helping with the cost of inflation. You're kind of
Hmm.
hedging your bets against that.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed Grant's book. I'm like, man, he laid it out so clearly with apartments.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think the other big thing is, as we're talking about this, the truth is there are so many different ways that you can multiply your money. There's, paper, I mean, everyone has different opinions. I agree that paper stocks can be pretty volatile.
Hmm.
Real estate, know what you're doing, which area you're going to get into. So you can have your own business, but a big thing I think is one being knowledgeable. So don't just go for the next shiny thing. And also a lot of money, Kiyosaki talks about this in his book Cash Flow Quadrant, and a lot of different entrepreneurs talk about this as well, where so much of it is a mindset game. Your
Hmm.
relationship with money being one of fear, one of greed, or it's a tool. Is it a
Yeah.
tool that I'm using to serve people, to serve the purposes that I have? And so I think having your mindset right around it and then committing to what you're going to do rather than, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. No, no, because the truth is markets will dip.
Hmm.
There's going to be bad times, even in real estate. But I love how Grant said he has shaped all his deals so that even when the markets are bad, you know that you can outride it.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
So, what are some ways that people can earn more money? Because if earning more money is like the goal that everybody has at the beginning of the year, what are some things they can do to help them earn more money?
Well, I think it's taking in an honest assessment of where you are right now. Um, for
I think
instance, if
that's
you,
important,
oh,
because if you don't know where you're at, how do you know where you want to go? And
mm,
how do you plan to get there? So
yeah.
I think that's important to, know where are you right now? Where do
Mhm.
you want to go? And then plan to get there, how you're going to get there.
Totally agreed, Mark. And what you mentioned about where do you want to go? You know, like surprisingly, a lot of people don't think about that.
Hmm.
And if they do, it's either, they don't want to aim too high or low. So I think being really like having a sit down, be like, okay, I'm not going to be scared to dream. This is where I want to go. Or, truthfully, I don't really want all this. So figuring that out, figuring out where you are, like sitting down, what are all my subscriptions? What am I paying every month? Like, what do I
Yeah.
really have to pay off? Doing that, a financial strategy assessment, but then also, what am I willing to do this year? So if you are at a full-time job, realistically, if it's a salary, if it's not a sales job, you can't expect to make more unless you get a promotion, you know?
Yeah.
Um, are you going to put in the work to get that promotion? Are you going to have that conversation with your boss? So really thinking that through. After that, I mean, the internet just is mind-blowing for everything you could accomplish here. You could
Yeah.
open like people do online selling clothes, or
Hmm.
you could start an app. I don't know, there are so many different ways to work. You
Yeah.
can make money on UGC content, user generated content, by selling other people's products. So figuring out like what it is that you want to do, but again committing to it.
Yeah. So that means leveling up your skills, getting
Yes.
better at, whether it means getting better at your job,
Mhm.
um, you know, uh, starting a side job, like you said.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
excuse me, um, you said something. Gosh, what did you say? Uh, well,
Work
I'll
full
come back
time.
to it. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, so some of the ways, I think the easiest thing is if you have a job right now, instead of going and
Mhm.
starting a new job or a side hustle, why not just go to your employer and say, hey, what can I do to bring more value to this company or this business to where I can increase my pay? what would
Yeah.
help you out so that I could increase my pay? Because now you're saying, how can I help the business grow, or how can I help this so that I can also benefit from that with increased income? So I think that would be the first place, people could start,
Hmm.
then going out and starting a new side hustle, but also just, learning new skills. I think that's
Hmm.
always a great place to start too.
Oh, so necessary. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just become more valuable and it's great to learn. Leaders are learners.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So what are some mistakes people make when it comes to money? Um, how they start to earn money. What are some mistakes that you see people make?
Well, I can tell you from lived experience. Um, and also, this is very common knowledge, but as soon as you make more, you spend more,
Hmm.
right? And that is something I think happens so frequently. So being very disciplined, like really disciplined. And again, it goes back to what you want to accomplish. If
Yeah.
you're fine with where you are, then don't change anything. But I know people who are saying, I want to buy a house, but they eat out every single night. So it's
Yeah.
like your actions and your words are not lining up.
Hmm.
There's a quote that I heard, and it's always stuck with me. If you have to think twice about buying it, you can't afford it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
So it's like when I buy a pack of gum, I'm not like, oh, can I? Nowadays, gum is crazy. But
Yeah.
but it's like, okay, then if you're looking at a car, so
Hmm.
I think that's the first thing that the spending goes up, so mitigating that. But the next thing that I love is really understanding what is an asset in my life and what is actually a liability. I know that a lot of people confuse the two. A nicer
Hmm.
house. Like, why do you actually want to own a nicer house? A lot of times, a nicer house equals larger debt. So that becomes a liability on your balance sheet, whereas it's an asset on the uh,
The
bank's
bank.
balance sheet. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
So,
so true. I mean, a house can be an asset and a liability,
hmm.
because at some point you got to repair the roof. You're going to have
Yeah.
plumbing issues. You're going to have all these, termites or whatever may
Hmm.
happen. All of a sudden it becomes a liability. It can be an asset in the sense that it can appreciate, but all that money is sitting in the house unless
Yeah.
you do a cash out refi or something. But um, yeah, there are things that you can, create that list of, here are all my assets, here are all my liabilities, and some things can be
Right.
both. Relationships
Yeah.
can be an
True.
asset or it can be a liability. So
So true. You
um,
want them to be assets,
yeah. Now
the greatest ones.
I do remember what I was going to say, because you
Uh-huh.
mentioned about, knowing where you're at and knowing your expenses, because
Mm,
I think people, in desiring to have more, I
hmm.
think, people say, okay, here's what I need,
Hmm.
and that number would reflect, here's what I need to live, here's to cover all my expenses, and this would, and that's usually where people, that's a baseline where you can start. And then
Hmm.
here's what I here's what I desire, or here's what I want, which
Hmm.
is usually about 2x that number. So let's say, your expenses are 5 grand, let's say, and then,
Hmm.
to what you want is 10 grand. But then I would say what you desire,
Hmm.
that would be something that would be is, 5x or 10x. So if it's 5 grand, now all of a sudden
Okay.
you want 50 grand a month to cover your
Yeah.
bills. That would be, that's where you can start dreaming, as far as what you said, because why limit your dreams?
Mm.
Because dreaming doesn't cost you anything, so why
Mm.
limit them? Dream big.
Yeah. I love that, Mark. That's what I was thinking too when you said that. It's like, don't do what makes you happy, but follow your bliss. Like,
Mm,
why not dream big and why not see your lifestyle and life in that way? Obviously, not only for yourself to serve other people, but I think people are scared to even think that big. Um, but also, that requires what we're talking about. That requires different actions. That requires risk, um, wisdom to know what to do.
yeah.
So, yeah, I completely agree.
So once people start earning more money, because you'd mentioned that some people, their lifestyle starts matching their income.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest as far as how should they think about that extra money they're earning versus
Mhm.
savings versus investing?
Mm.
How should they think about that?
Well, I think it goes back to what are your goals?
Hmm.
Um, is it to purchase a house? Is it financial freedom? Because those are going to be very different. So if it's
Yeah.
financial freedom, like you're gonna have to know your expenses and set up your your income and assets in a way that they're going to be producing for you long term.
Hmm.
So I think it really goes back to what your goals are. But if it is, if say that it is to earn more, make more, invest in the right way, then becoming educated on the different investment options like real estate. So I loved learning about the like group investing into apartments. That's not something I knew about before last week. Knowing your financial house, if you'll say,
Yeah.
like what is your if you were gonna get sick like tomorrow, or if your car got in an accident, are you gonna be okay? Do I
Hmm.
have that set up? Do I have an emergency fund set up? What
Hmm.
does that look like? A lot of people have, if they have an emergency fund, it's about 1 to 3 months, which is great. Obviously, 6 times to one year is where you want to go for. Knowing your debt, like, do you have any credit card debt? And if you're paying
Hmm.
minimum, please do everything to pay that off as fast as possible.
Yeah, that should be the first thing you do before saving anything or investing is
Yeah.
get that debt taken care of.
It's crazy what the credit, like it's now that I'm understanding more and more, I always thought it was a little bit weird that at different department stores they offer you credit cards when you're 15 years old,
Yeah.
and all these companies are sending you credit cards like all the time to your house. But now that I know what it's like, it's so, I honestly think it's evil because
Yeah.
once you get in that cycle, if you don't know properly like that, you're indebted, you're enslaved to paying that off. And it reminds me of the scripture, the borrower is slave to the lender.
So
And
true.
that's what credit cards can do with 20 to 30% interest rate. So I'm like, that's predatory what they're doing.
And they're sending, I mean, my son Max, who's a senior in high school, is getting credit card applications sent to him. As soon as I get them, I just tear them up and throw them away.
It
I don't even
is
let him know.
That's so upsetting because these companies they know that your son is young. They know that people who are younger are more impulsive with their money. They don't have
Yeah.
the education. So it's literally predatory lending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, getting out of debt, especially consumer debt, because
Hmm.
there is good debt,
Hmm.
as
Agreed.
Grant Cardone talks about, like
Hmm.
the good debt is the kind of debt that you use that can help expand your business and
Yeah.
grow. So things like that, that's good debt or debt that's paid down by others. So if you're buying, let's say, an investment property and you've got renters, they're paying down your debt. So that is
Yeah.
a good debt. But any kind of debt that you use that's consumer debt, buying clothes, groceries, whatever, that's not good debt. So,
No.
yeah, you want to get rid of that first because there's no creating wealth or creating freedom until you get rid of that debt.
Agreed.
So, you mentioned the cash flow quadrant,
Mhm.
and I like that. If can you give us a little bit more examples of the four quadrants that Rob Kiyosaki talks about in his book, and then how do you move from being an earner to an investor? What are some of the steps that you can do there?
Yeah. Um, love that book. I just read it a couple months ago. Someone recommended it. And the cash flow quadrant has four sections to it. So E for employee, EBSI, employee, self-employed, business owner, and then investor. So what Kiyosaki talks about is, obviously as an employer, W-2,
Hmm.
um, W-2s often get taxed the heaviest. So when something's happening in the country, the government's in trouble, the employees are going to pay a lot of that burden on their
Yeah,
paycheck. Self-employed are people who, I mean, he claims as they think they're business owners, but they're really self-employed. So if you're a
they own a
lawyer,
job.
They own a job. Exactly. If they're not there, the business doesn't function. You need
Yeah.
to be there. So it's a step up from employee in terms of your like decisions, I guess, your time, but really a lot of the time self-employed end up working longer hours than
Hmm.
employees. But you have more control with your finances, with the income coming in and more, you hold more of the assets. Next are business owners. So these are people who own businesses. A lot of times, these numbers are on the bigger business side, so maybe 100 people, or not a small business really. They can
Yeah.
leave for vacation. They have a president, they have a CEO, and the business is still running.
Yeah.
The
And
next, uh-huh,
that's from what I recall, I think a business owner owns systems. So
yes.
you owning those systems that the business has. So
Hmm.
that's what gives you that freedom as a business owner, where you've got employees that work for you. And as long as
Yeah.
you've got the systems in place, it kind of gives you that freedom.
That reminds me, Mark, an analogy he used in the book that I love. Um, a lot of people he would chat with would talk about their product. They're focusing on how good their product is. They can do this, they can do this. And he asks, "Hey, can you make a better burger than McDonald's?" And of course, everyone can make a better hamburger than McDonald's, yet
Yeah.
McDonald's is one of the largest corporations that we know. Why? Because they built systems. And
Mm,
so a lot of being able to build a business that is sustainable without you, you need the system.
hmm.
Otherwise, you're just going to be running around. People are not going to know what they're doing. So yes, and the more research I do, I just finished a book by Michael Gerber called The E-Myth.
That's a great book. That's what really
You
started
read
me on this
it.
journey. Yeah.
Okay, then yeah, I just finished it actually. Wow, that's so awesome, Mark.
Yeah.
That started you on this journey. But he talks about systems.
Hmm.
Yeah, and being able to franchise or prototype whatever you're doing. And that just really forced me, challenged, and encouraged me to think about everything differently. Because it's just a different way of using your brain. So that is the third quadrant in Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant. It's very systems focused. Also, to mention that this quadrant gets a lot of the tax breaks and tax benefits. So,
Okay.
yeah, and so the government will give you um, they want to encourage investing. They want to encourage, creating jobs and things like that. So B and I, the last quadrant is investing. These two quadrants get the biggest tax breaks.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and kind of knowing the system, I guess you could say.
Which
But yeah,
makes sense. I mean, for me, even as a business owner, I see the benefits that I get, tax wise, the things that I
yeah,
get to write off because, I can write off my car because I use it for
yeah,
business. So it's a business expense. There's certain things I can write off. I can write off, the utilities, for that keep the lights on. I can write off the
mhm,
internet. There's certain things that you can write off
yeah,
as a business owner that you don't get to do as an employee.
mhm,
um, and then even as an investor, you're taxed at a lower rate on that passive income that's generated
yeah.
from your investments than it is on your earned income.
Yeah, that's very true. And something I came across recently, it's as a business owner, you have your profit, and then you take away all the expenses that you need to run that business, and then on that amount you get taxed.
Yeah,
Versus when you're W-2, the government takes it first, and then
yeah,
whatever you have left over, then
you
you
get to
can
keep.
exactly. And so it's like, okay, which one is better, you know? And
and
then
and today, I mean, one, everybody needs a job. That's where you start
yeah.
creating money and
Hmm.
earning money. But it's also important to think about how can you take the money you're earning to invest it so that, and it makes it so easy today with the internet, like you're talking about earlier. There's so many ways that you can offset your taxes if you're a W-2 employee by
Hmm.
starting a job, a side business. It
Yeah.
can be anything from, network marketing company or tutoring kids, in
Yeah.
school and charging for that. So that gives you a way to offset the taxes that you pay in, so that because you have business expenses.
That's so true. That's so good. Even tutoring, you could become a sole proprietor there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's that book, The Cash Flow Quadrant, really kind of inspired me because, as well, especially moving through those quadrants and knowing where you're at and how you can
Yeah.
get to that, whether it's self-employed, because if you're self-employed, still you do get some tax breaks there,
Oh
but
yeah. Mhm.
understanding, okay, the money I'm earning, I'm the one that has to do all the work, uh,
Yeah.
but you can still take that money and invest it and become an investor to create that passive
Yeah.
income.
Yeah, and Kiyosaki mentioned, and I think we just briefly chatted about this, that the different, like, I guess, levels within each of these quadrants. For instance, how do we start investing?
Hmm.
Um, there's different levels of investors,
Yeah.
You can be very hands off. You can be an investor who just goes to the bank and says, "Tell me what I need to do. Here's a
Hmm.
fee, here's my money, you take care of it." Then there are investors who actually get involved and they're the ones doing the research. They know what to
Yeah.
invest in. So I think it's always best to like be involved and proactive to get knowledgeable on it rather than just having somebody else do it for
Yeah.
you. Um, so yeah. Mhm.
So we can touch on this a little bit, but the E Myth, Michael Gerber's book,
Yeah.
um, that's what gave me those aha moments when you're in business and you're struggling and you can't figure out why, what's happening. And my friend Ron Harris gave me that book, and I had it for about 5 years before I opened it. And when I
Wow.
did read it, it was like one of those, every chapter was like, oh my gosh, this is talking about me. This is describing me, all the burnout that you go through, because all these different steps that happen. And then understanding it's really, like you said, creating systems and processes and knowing what your role is in the company so that you can maximize those things that you're good at to help the business grow and then hire for all those other things. So
Yeah.
that was a big kind of aha moment for me in business.
I think it got me in chapter one when you talked about there's three people living in you,
Yeah,
the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician. And I was like, wow, I can identify with all that. And
yeah, yeah. Um, so a lot of people, well, I say a lot of people, some people are afraid to invest. And
mm,
we kind of talked about that a little bit because they don't understand the risks or whatever that might be. And, I've been there. I've invested money all off of emotion, thinking that this is going to be some big thing and just losing it all, which is never fun.
mm,
And I like Warren Buffett's rule of investing,
yeah.
which means, part of that is know what you're investing in, do your due diligence and stuff. But his rule is rule number one, don't lose money. Rule number two, refer to rule number one. So, when investing, don't lose money. So don't make rash decisions, know what you're investing in. So what are some other risks or things that you think that you can help clients reframe when it comes to investing as a financial professional?
Well, I think a big thing is know what you're investing in. Like you mentioned, I think a lot of people, and some of the time it works
Hmm.
that you can just kind of give your money to somebody and they take care of it for you. But Warren Buffett has this quote that I love, and it's Wall Street is the only place where people show up in a Rolls Royce to take advice from somebody who took the subway to work.
That's funny.
Yeah, and so I think there is, and you hear it from a lot of different successful business owners and leaders, um, becoming knowledgeable in this space that you want to go into.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be a passive investor, that's totally fine. But it's if you want to actually like go be, I guess, live in this space, then know what you're doing.
Hmm.
Um, I also think that it's important that people know I think a lot of people, what they feel, and I know I felt this way, is that I don't have enough to start investing.
Yeah.
I don't have enough money to make a dent. And there is some validity that when you have more, yes, you can make more returns, right? But just because you don't have a huge chunk of capital, you can still put money away in, I don't know, there's different like paper stocks or things like that you can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah,
But
because
all,
that, oh, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, but then also if you do want to, save some up to make a big investment in something, then also actively doing that. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I guess deciding.
Yeah, because even if you don't have a lot, whatever you're starting to save, I mean, start somewhere. That's
Yeah.
the first thing. But then what you're starting to save, save it in whether it's a high yield savings account so that you can build that up to invest in, once you get a certain amount of money, whatever that target amount is to invest, then invest it. But, I like your idea of, invest in something that's going to yield a return,
Mhm.
whether it is in the stock market, but in a um, uh, safe way that you know that you're not going to lose money, because sometimes you put stuff in a stock and the
Mhm.
stocks can go up and down and up and down. So then you got to leave your money in there and you can't take it out
Yeah.
to invest in something until it rebounds. So, but yeah, find something that you can park your money in that's going to give you the best return
Mhm.
until you're ready to buy that asset that cash flows.
Yeah, and I would also say, when I heard Warren Buffett's quote, don't lose a dollar.
Mhm.
Rule number two, don't forget rule number one. I
Mhm.
think another aspect of what he's saying is a lot of people want to fund things by cash. And okay, you can do that. I know Dave Ramsey sticks by it. Some people I are like, you're crazy. I do agree that there's good debt. And instead of paying for everything by cash, take all of your all the capital that you have and have it go into an account that actually produces money. And then you can leverage whatever asset you have to take out a business loan or some type
Mm.
of debt to fund your next income producing asset. And I think it's also, personally, I don't love high yield savings accounts because even high yield ones have like crazy low interest rates. But
Yeah.
you can take things like an IUL, which a lot of people are not familiar with. The advantages of like the tax advantages, taking loans out of your own policy, things like that, that people, there's strategies that you can use. And
Hmm.
so I think one of Mark, I believe is his name. No, Ryan, which is
Okay.
funny because I actually saw his video before you even referred him, Mark.
Oh yeah, Brian D. Lee.
Yeah, on a group YouTube discussion, but he also mentioned this where you can have a larger asset without having all of the capital for that asset up front. That's how an IUL can work, where you fund a premium for the year and you build that up a little bit, and then you can take out a loan against your own policy value.
Okay.
Or people do that with their Roth IRA. So there's all different strategies, but of course, you want to be knowledgeable and not do anything rashly either.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So in we're getting ready to launch into 2026. Maybe
Hmm.
by the time this airs, it'll already be 2026.
No, my
But I mean,
goodness.
it's just 2 days away. That's crazy. Um,
Wow.
so what are some, practical steps that people can take towards setting goals,
Hmm.
especially goals that they can achieve?
Hmm.
And I don't want to say achieve that they set the goal too small, because you'd rather set a goal big and fall short. Like, I want to earn an extra $200,000 and fall short of that goal, as opposed to say, oh, I want to earn an extra $5,000 and then fall short of $5,000. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Because having a
yeah.
bigger goal can push you.
Uh-huh.
But so what are some things that people can do now that actually, helps them setting those goals and have clarity? Because we talked about knowing where you're at and where you want to go. So what are some
Mm.
ways that people can do that?
I was just reading Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, and he quotes James Clear actually. who wrote Atomic Habits, but he said winners and losers, they all have the same goals. So it's not really just the goal, but the system that you're going to put in place to accomplish those things.
Mm,
So I think getting real about what do I actually want, and then what systems am I going to put in to achieve that. So if it's working out, like what is my system there? Am I gonna put my workout clothes out by my bed, or
yeah.
what's gonna happen if I don't go? Like I need an accountability partner, whatever the system is.
Yeah.
Um, were you gonna say something, Mark?
No, but that's a good point because having those systems, like if your goal, like a health goal or
Hmm.
something, having those things, you don't want to have junk food in your house. So
Oh my
part of
gosh.
that
Put it
system is
out.
getting rid of all the junk food, and,
Yeah.
so that if your goal is health to get in the best shape of your life, have the
Hmm.
most energy and whatever, then that system probably needs to be having the right foods in your house so that when you want a
Yeah.
snack, you go for the healthy snack, and not the junk
Mhm.
food.
Yeah, and I think something that's so important is also accountability. Like there is going to
Absolutely.
be, I mean, I think the stat is like before the end of January, most resolutions go out the door, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy, but it's like, okay, maybe you got past January, but what about like March or April? So when you feel like doing that thing that you shouldn't be doing, do you have an accountability partner you can call up and be like, okay, this is what I'm going through. But since we're on the topic of finances, uh, by the way, I myself, like I'm very much learning and growing through this journey. I have not by any means like gone to where I want to go. Even
Yeah.
with my business right now, like I learned the mistakes, right? And now looking back, I'm like, okay, I could have done this differently and I'm going to do this now, implement these systems to not have this happen. Um, but I think first things first is doing a very honest assessment of where you are and actually on a spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets, like
Mm.
creating an OPEX. It's for business, your operating expenses, but doing that for your own life. Like, what
Yeah.
are my operating expenses? Like, what do I actually spend on a monthly, on an annually? What's a need? What's a desire? Um, Calculating all of that, have your table ready, have your goals next to it. Um, and then have your systems there as well. So I think first, being honest about where do I want to go. Something I love doing, I love and hate at the same time is like, okay, if my life looks like this at the end of next year, will I be happy or not happy? Okay, if that's not the case, what do I need to do differently?
Hmm. That's a
Um,
good point
mhm.
because you can't keep doing the same thing that you did last year and expect a different result. You're going to have to change. You're going to have to start doing some things differently.
Yeah,
Um,
oh my gosh.
and that is so true. That is so true. And everybody falls into that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that happens to me, because what happens is, like you said, you start off the year, you have all these goals and aspirations.
Hmm.
Then, whether it's 2 weeks, 2 months, or 6 months, you start
Hmm.
falling back into those old habits. And if you don't surround yourself with an accountability partner or
Hmm.
have someone that can keep you on track, that's that's where you can kind of fall back into the same pattern, and you find yourself at the end of the year the same place you were at the beginning of the year and not any further along. Um, and speaking of that, I
Hmm.
think that's kind of a good segue into what we're planning to do to help people that want to come
Yes.
along this journey.
Hmm.
Is in January, I think it's the 17th. We talked about like
Yeah.
on a Saturday morning to do
Hmm.
like a free workshop for people that want to get their money right, their relationship with their
Yeah.
money right. So um, I'll make sure to put like a link. We'll have a link in the
A
show
registration
description that
link.
people
Hmm.
can connect, and we'll promote that as well over the next couple of
Yeah.
weeks, so that people can join us on this journey.
Yeah, and I think um it is a journey, Mark. And I think right now, especially a lot of people are waking up to the fact that we haven't had financial education in our school systems, that the way things are going is not working well.
Hmm.
People are tired. People are working hard. AI is now in the mix, and a lot of jobs are being wiped out. I was chatting with a friend recently, and she got a job at Apple, and I was asking her how it was. This was a big moment. And then she was laid off 5 weeks after she got
Wow.
the job. Yeah, and so I think people are being getting curious, and the workshop will be a great time to just know the basics, the fundamentals, like even the rule of 72. What should I be looking for? Different ways of
Yeah.
investing, money myths. So, yeah, I'm really excited to do that.
Cool. Well, as we kind of close up this time together, what's some final wisdom that you could impart, for people that want to make 2026 the best year ever?
Mm,
Join the
well,
workshop for one.
yes, definitely come hang out with me and Mark, and you're going to learn things, and we're going to learn as well. So we can do this together. This has been on my heart recently, not recently, but I think all of us want to have, the best year ever,
Hmm.
uh, be different at the end of the year. But what does that really mean? And I think a lot of it is not necessarily doing more or, you know, being in a different place, but I think it's a lot about becoming more. It's not just about
Yeah.
doing more things, but becoming um, like a bigger person inside, And that comes with commitment, that comes with hard decisions, that comes with gratitude and practice.
Hmm.
So I would say, if any wisdom, which again, I'm also learning and living through, um, yeah, it's about becoming the person to have those hard conversations or make those hard choices.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
yeah.
think that's so true, and that's great advice. Because in order to have those things, you have to become somebody different. You have to
Yeah.
think different. I mean, you can't be the
True.
same person like we talked about earlier. You can't be the same person at the end of the year. So that
Right.
means, picking up a book and reading it, whether it's on money, finance, on business, whatever it may be, or on health, whatever your goals are, um, and learning, because you don't want to stop learning, and and look at who you want to become, because I really like that you said, who do you want to become, by the end of 2026. What is that person, how do they talk, how do they communicate, how do they dress,
Hmm.
and just understand who you need to become in
Hmm.
order to kind of uh, create more in your life.
Hmm.
So I like that.
Yeah, and I want to say one more thing on that. I think a big part of it is, and I feel like Mark, you would agree, is doing the scary thing.
Hmm.
Like when we're afraid, I think that's what stops us a lot of times. And
Yeah.
it's like whatever I'm afraid of, I'm gonna face that. And in the Bible, it talks about this so much. Do not be afraid. And I think that when we're living in that dream space, like you mentioned, like dreaming that income, dreaming that lifestyle, dreaming that um, omnipresence of influence, we got to face some fears,
Yeah.
you know? And so to not be this in the same place next year is to do things and go into areas and territories that I've never been before, inside myself as well.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So how can people get in touch with you? How can we get in touch with you? What's the best way to follow you on social media?
Yeah, I mean, it's all my first and last name, Elsha.Kim. I mostly check Instagram, but I have a handle on all the platforms.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. Well, Elsha, thank you so much. I'm so excited we're going on this journey together.
Thank you,
You're
Mark.
such a great communicator and a great student and teacher. I love how you
Aw.
absorb all this information and then have a great way of communicating that so that it's easy to understand and easy to put into action. So I am looking forward to, 2026 and what we're going to do together, not only just for ourselves, but for anybody that wants to come along on this journey and how we can help them.
Yeah, and thank you, Mark, for this podcast. We need more of this content, and it's so encouraging. So thanks.
Thank you. Hey, thank you for joining us today on Beyond Average to Great. If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to show your appreciation is by subscribing to our show and sharing it on your social media channels. Don't forget to tag me when you do. We'll see you on the next episode. Until then, remember, be great.